sorry? Are you heartfully sorry for all of your sins? It doesn't matter, because now is the time for your just punishments. Hello, I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz, so glad you're here. We are going to be talking about Danger Close, Season 1, Episode 11 of The Punisher. As danger knocks on Sarah's door, Frank takes his quest for vengeance to the next level with some help from an unexpected ally. Our director this week is Kevin Hooks. Jerry Conway, of course, gets our created by credit because he created the comic book, so he gets the based on the Marvel Comics by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., and Ross Andrew. Steve Lightfoot gets the created by credit. Felicia Day Henderson is our writer this week. Angela Lamanna, of course, the story editor, and hardest working man in show business, our staff writer, Ken Christensen. Okay, this is where it's all starting to come together. We're really picking up our pace now. We're picking up our pace so much we actually talked about this episode a little bit last week, but that's okay. I'm sure you'll follow through, and honestly, I think, everything you said still holds last week, and we'll talk about it a bit more this week. Okay. We are opening up, I'm trying to remember what the actual first scene is, but I know we have Frank trying to mend himself up.
Well, I think we open on, the pier or something where Frank is sitting by the fire reminiscing about his lost friendships and his lost relationships.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a little rough. Because he basically is realizing that he has been betrayed. There's a great scene at the end of this that I think is so powerful. I believe our next episode is called Home. Might be the episode after that, but I think that there's, I always like to look for ways that one thing ties into the next. And there's the very end of this episode has a line that I think is really important. Where that is when Leo is talking to Frank, and she says, "I don't know what to call you anymore. Seems calling you Pete would be silly." And he says, "I'm Frank Castle." And she says, "That's a lot scarier than Pete." And he goes, yeah, it is. And, I think that's kind of the point to Frank, is that Pete Castiglione is dead. And he's never going to get to be Frank Castiglione. Because, after this day, first off, he doesn't even know if he's going to get out of this, but, he doesn't care if he dies. He just needs to kill these guys. He has to be the Punisher because he has to end this story. And, his story, he fears, will never be the story of Pete Castiglione. It'll always be the story of Frank Castle, the Punisher. And we get a little of this when he is mending himself, and we get this little, you betrayed me, no I didn't, yes you did, back and forth as Micro is stitching him up. And then we get Frank recreating the skull. The memento mori, as Micro pointed out to him. And what is neat to me about the memento mori, which I believe is also the name of our final episode, and this is just complete bit of side nerdery. If you're watching the series of unfortunate events on Netflix, also when they go to the academy, that is the academy's Latin motto is "Remember, you will die." And so my children have been wandering around the house shouting, "Remember, you will die! Remember, you will die!" So yes, it's a fun thing. But it is the memento mori, to remember you will die. And it's a nice analysis that that the skull isn't their deaths, it's yours. But I think Frank's okay with that.
Yeah, that's part of the plan.
And as we discussed last week, because we were remembering an episode from this week, Rollins comes to his boss about this whole mess,
Mm.
and she is, of course, first properly disgusted, but then acquiesces.
Right.
Which I love, because this is a thing we see with her throughout. Because she has a couple of scenes here with Rollins.
Right.
This one where basically she's like, I don't understand why you keep on saying we. You sounds like you screwed up. Yes, it's embarrassing to me, but I don't think this is going to take me down. But he basically, convinces her that, look, I can make it all go away, then everybody's happy. And he gives her his little spin on it, because, Rollins is your quintessential political weasel, where his entire existence has been trying to stay one step ahead of every scam he's ever pulled.
Right.
He is Turk with money and privilege. Uh, and of course, money and privilege makes him much less lovable than our good old Turk.
Right.
Our hardest working man in the Netflix universe.
Yeah, I would wager though that one is probably responsible for a lot more deaths than the other.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Rollins certainly has killed far more people than Turk ever could hope to.
Right.
Like I said, money and privilege. When you're trying to stay one step ahead of your scam to eat, that's one thing. When you're trying to stay one step ahead of your scam to keep water in your swimming pool, it's a whole other thing. And oddly enough, the guy who wants to eat is much more human than the guy who doesn't, or who doesn't have to worry about that. The guy who's just trying to, the guy for whom it all becomes a game, instead of the guy who's doing it for survival. When it becomes a game, when your survival when the game is no longer about survival, but just as your distraction and amusement, it certainly ruins who you could be as a human being. And to that extent, it's a fun aspect ties into this current run of Avengers, No Surrender, where the Grandmaster has made a cosmic game and will destroy the Earth regardless of who wins the game. The Earth is just to be destroyed because apparently he can do that. It's always very, very weird in the Marvel comics exactly how powerful the various alien races may or may not be. One day they can destroy everything with the flick of a switch, and another day they simply can't even come close to defeating the Earth. It all depends on, I guess it depends on whether or not they want the planet there or not. If you don't really care about the planet, destroying it is easy, I guess is the moral of that story. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other genre of storyline. Getting back to this episode, basically Rollins is speaking with his boss and convinces her to let him take out the asset, and of course this is about the escalation. First it's, I've got an asset, he can take out Castle. We take out Castle, problem solved, no one has to be the wiser.
Right.
He gets access to his
But this is interesting, though. She gives him permission to operate on U.S. soil. Like before, whatever he did was not with her permission, at least, explicit permission. But here, she has explicitly said, yes, I okay you. So, I mean, she knows she's in trouble already, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. She knows that she's basically making her deals with the devil. Because for what it's worth, she's trying to stay one step ahead of her scams too,
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, that's what these are all people trying to stay one step ahead. And although here's what I will say about this. Yes, it is. She's giving permission to use this apparatus. He did not have permission prior to this moment.
Right.
And it also kind of puts to the fact that this is not a grand conspiracy. This is a small conspiracy. This is a small handful of criminals running a little mafia-type organization over a small area in Afghanistan, or now a small area in the New York drug scene. these are not the world-moving Hydra agents. These are really petty little men and women, mostly petty little men, um, trying to move their pieces on the board just to keep themselves amused or to keep themselves wealthy or what have you. And this goes all the way back to Carson Wolf we see at the very beginning of this series where, he is living in too nice a house for a guy drawing the salary he is.
Mm.
These are all guys trying to keep that fancy house, for...
Right, but I mean, we need them too. The world needs villains,
Well, the world doesn't need villains. Stories need villains. Stories need villains.
Fair enough.
We actually could do just fine without villains if everyone actually behaved nicely and it was good. And if villains were simply something we read about in stories, that would be fascinating.
Fair enough. That's a good point.
Say the world needs villains. No, the world doesn't need villains. Stories need villains. The worlds we create need villains, but we don't actually.
Right.
We don't actually have villains in our world. Yes, their world.
Yeah, their world needs villains.
Their world needs villains for our amusement.
Right.
Dance for us. Dance for us. But that is that. He gets this access, and of course. It looks like the sun, because of course we did see last week, and I think this is where we get a little confused. We did see last week that
asking for information.
Yes, the kids,
about Castle.
Yeah, the kids did see the information saw the phone number for the hotline. If you've seen Frank Castle, and of course the son, who even though he had a nice moment and tossed the ball around with Castle, still isn't feeling him.
No, or anything good. That kid's it reminds me of Carl from The Walking Dead. Every show has to have like this one little kid that they make you love to hate.
Okay. I don't hate the kid. I think the kid's...
Oh, God, I hate him. I hate little kids like this. Just fucking know-it-alls. Sorry.
Oh, well, I guess I was just a know-it-all kid, so... I feel for him. I feel for the Wesley Crushers of the universe. Anyway, but yeah, so this is him. But apparently he gives a call, and at first we think the cops show up.
Yeah.
But they ain't cops. And basically after Frank and Micro have their little fight about who betrayed who, we see that Frank notices, hey, where is everybody at the house? What happened at the house? And they rewind and they see the cops, and then we see that Leo got away. That the cops didn't get Leo. Frank calls Leo to have her meet him at the pool park.
Right.
And then Frank tells him to go be with his kids because at the end of the day, Frank is going to do what he's going to do. He knows Russo. Well, he thinks Russo is going to come because he knows they're going to come to the safe house now.
Right.
And so he's going to set up to give them a warm welcome.
Right.
And then we get Micro's wife and son being held hostage by Russo and Rollins. I found it interesting. They're not wearing blindfolds or anything in this. So I don't know if they ever get to see or hear Russo or Rollins. I think they try to stay out of line of shot, but I could not really tell from this if they actually, were being that believable being seen.
I mean, they did leave it open enough for us to question, but I don't think they pointed anything towards making it known that they were able to hear what Rollins and Russo were talking about.
Yes. But basically, Russo is not happy. Because Russo, and it's an interesting thing. Now, there's two very interesting things in this. One is, Russo asks Rollins because Rollins is saying, hey, look, I've got the CIA on my side now. I've got the permission. We're all good. We're totally off the books. You can kill this guy and we're okay. And Russo doesn't buy this all for a minute. And he does two things that I think is very interesting. The first thing he does is he says, you know, did you give the CIA director or the deputy director my name? And Rollins says, no, of course not. You're completely clean on this. And then he doesn't tell Rollins that Madani has his name. Because they knew that Frank had his name. They didn't know that Micro had his name. They did not know that that they had given that information to Madani. So essentially what it is him. So in speaking with his supervisor, Rollins not saying Russo is with him puts Rollins in a spot where he can hang Russo out, as he does at the end of this episode.
Right.
And when Rollins tells Russo, "No, you're clean," that is Russo gets what he gets, that him not telling his boss about him means that he does not get the CIA's protection in this. That he will be allowed to drive. And I think that's why he doesn't tell Rollins, you know, Madani has your name.
Right. When you're playing games at this level, you know, this kind of tradecraft, everything has subtext and everything has meaning. No one ever directly says what they mean, but they tell you what they mean by their actions. And if you can pick those apart, as you know, you'll know where you stand.
And not for nothing, at the end of this episode, when the deputy director tells Rollins that Madani has his name, he immediately gives Russo up. Maybe he didn't realize. Maybe he did that because he knew that Russo probably knows Madani has his name and didn't share that information, or maybe he just figures, you know what, I haven't told her that I'm allied with this guy. I'm going to give him up.
No, that was the plan all along. It's like when you bring your bishop in front of your king to block check. Okay, you know what, take him.
Yeah, well, exactly, and Russo knows that, and Rollins knows that.
Everybody knows their role.
And Marion, and like I said, I really love Marion. I hope we get to see more of Marion since her kids are going to NYU. Honestly, I want to see Marion make her way to some other place. I'd love to see her as the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think she'd be great. Because I do love that she does have a moral compass.
And she's about to get ruined at the hands of somebody with less of a moral compass.
Well, you know what it is she's going to let him run as long as she can. But, of course, the idea, I guess her take on it is, and not for nothing, I'm sure her thinking is, you know what, with any luck, the Punisher's going to kill both of these idiots, and I get my hands really washed on this story. You know, you all get to go die, hero. Have fun. You know, because not for nothing, the Punisher is, you know, much like Madani says to Russo, gee, that's a real nice suit you got there. Sure hope it's bulletproof. Basically making this point to Russo, look, friend, you know, I know what you did. You give me Rollins, I can actually help you through all this nonsense. And if you don't, you know, because she says, no, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the Punisher. I don't have him yet. And, gee, I guess he's pretty mad at you right now. You know, which is basically saying, you know, you can either deal with us or you can deal with the Punisher. Now, truth be told, if they go to jail, that doesn't necessarily protect them from the Punisher. The Punisher's been to jail, and he I think he would be more than happy to go back. He got through it the last time. You know, it is a scary place to be in Russo's shoes right now. And Rollins, with all of his wealth and privilege, I don't think he gets in how much danger he really is. Which is ironic because he's the guy that the Punisher actually shot at.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's well aware, but I think he's also the kind of person that's been in that kind of situation his whole career. So this is just a mode of operating for him. He just switches onto this gear, and it's just something that's comfortable for him, I think.
I mean, I think you got a real. I think there's a real level to that. I think he's definitely, he is definitely a classic sociopath. He's definitely disconnected from all that's going on, and he is definitely more than happy to, see everyone dead if it moves his story forward.
Yeah, and I think part of his agenda and his plan all along is to die trying. So, like, if he there's a nobility to his calling in a sense of accomplishing, gathering of power and that sort of thing. Because when it comes to it, he'll readily give his life to get ahead. Yeah. Not to save somebody else, but to save his own skin, to get ahead.
Well, yeah. What I'll say is, I think he says that in the way that he thinks about death, and this, I think, is the memento mori aspect of it. I don't think he thinks about death as a reality for him. He's like, I may die, but it will be a noble death. And saying it will be a noble death is something that is said by men who are not in foxholes. That's what you say. That's what you say at the bar before or after the battle. You don't say it when you're actually in the middle of it.
Right.
Frank Castle knows there's a very good chance when these guys come that he's not going to make it out, and not for nothing. It is your classic Batman weakness in the fact that yes, because he gets shot square in the back by one of these guys. Fortunately, he's wearing his armor, but there's no armor on his head. And no one ever thinks, "Oh wait, headshot, that works."
Oh yeah. There's certain things you gotta give up.
I know.
But you know what I thought was interesting? This was the whole time I kept thinking, this is what would happen if Batman ever went crazy, and then it made me think, man, this would have been a great representation of Batman in the Justice League movies. Somebody who's been at this for so long that his nerves are rattled. I think if they put John Bernthal in as playing exactly this character, but make it Batman gone crazy where he's killing people, I think that would have been way more interesting and way more fun. If they really were going to go that route that he has broken,
I think that's what they wanted to do. Unfortunately, it was their first Batman movie. And they were, basically what it is that, this is what, when we talk about Justice League film, that the problem was that they tried to do too much too fast. They tried to go too far into the Batman lore, and yet also have it be an origin film.
Right. They sort of were in two directions at once, and neither of them got what they wanted, nor did they gel together to make one cohesive thing that was worthwhile.
Because you can do that story of Batman and Superman growing apart over the years and the difference between them, or you can do the story of the origin of the Justice League. You can't do both at the same time. It doesn't really work. It doesn't work to make, none of it made sense. That was the basic problem as far as character. None of these characters made sense for where they were. They made for great visuals. But, why those visuals were happening didn't make sense. But that's that film. We will talk no more of it.
And the brutality in this, and the way he just has such disdain for these Anvil soldiers and kills them without a second thought. It's just so brutal and so visceral.
Yeah, but to be fair, they're coming to kill him.
Yeah, no. I agree.
This is not a
my surprise was in their decision to show this in such a stark way.
Oh yeah,
and not sugarcoat it at all. That was surprising and interesting and very cool to me.
Welcome to Netflix, my friend. They can show movies if they want. They don't always want to, but they can. They've done it a few times. And it is brutal. There's a scene in this where he's filling the light bulbs with gunpowder. And I've always wondered if that actually works. I know it's in the Anarchist Cookbook, and it was done in, I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street. No, it was a Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it was one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets where one of the victims is like really into the Anarchist Cookbook, and she uses all this stuff to try and set a trap for Freddy. I believe that's what it was. It might have been a Halloween episode. I don't know.
I thought what he was going to do was, because there was screwed in, at some point he would flip the switch and the lights would come on and current would flow through them, and then in a row they would go exploding all over the compound. I was like, oh, that'd be cool, pretty cool. But he just shot it, and I was like, ah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That's what happened. Yeah, I was hoping it would be. Well, the idea is that the guy comes in, they turn on the lights, but I guess they weren't
Yeah.
that stupid either. So you know.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's kind of cool, but he
Yeah.
could have switched it on for him. That would have been cool.
Yeah, well, I
But
guess
that
the
scene
idea is
was
that the light is close to the
so
switch,
beautiful.
kind of thing. Yeah, no, it is cool. It is neat. It is great how it all worked out. It was a great thing, and man, as far as out cold, when he's got the one anvil soldier and says, "Tell me where they are," he says, "I don't know, man. It's
Yeah.
neat. It's neat to know. You know how that
Mm.
goes." And he's like, "Yeah, I do, man. Sorry." It's
Oh man.
yeah, because it's like, yeah, it is need to know, and if you don't need to know, then I'm sorry, I don't really have a need to have you be here.
Right. That and the severed head, the memento mori. Oh my
Oh
god,
my
that
god,
was
yeah.
so yeah.
Yes, that
That was
severed head,
amazing.
that is something. And you know what that is? That is pure psychological warfare. That is, I'm going to
Yeah.
scare the heck out of you guys. I'm going to let you know I am the Batman,
Yeah. It was a symbol. Oh man, it was so beautiful.
Yeah, and that's how you defeat, anybody.
Mm.
It's like,
Mm.
because it immediately puts them off their game. Because
Yeah.
first off, you see anybody's severed head. Honestly, I'm surprised at least two guys didn't say, you know what, I'm good.
Yeah, like
This
they
is not
rode
a paycheck worth the work,
Yeah, they rode in the truck with him. That guy probably farted like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, of course, they probably, yeah. About your bowels losing.
That's gotta mess you up. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, exactly. They know this guy, and that is sorry. That is I didn't actually say the K. That is fudged up. And that is what happens with these things. And yeah, they did just know this guy. This is probably a guy they've been on missions with before.
Yeah.
And it really, like I say, it really shows. You know what it shows? It shows the problems with asymmetrical warfare and the idea of the armored hero and the idea that, yeah, these are all well-trained soldiers, but they're walking into an ambush. And when you walk into an ambush, you're in danger. And obviously, and Russo says it as soon as the guy picks up the phone. He says, yeah, the phone's right here. Says, it's a trap. It's like, well, obviously.
I mean, really, yeah.
You really think you're tracking the Punisher and Micro, and it's not going to be a trap? You really think you're going into this place and it's not going to be a trap? Honestly,
You know who I guess would have guessed that it would have been a trap and probably would have known better? Lewis.
Oh, probably, but he's dead at this point. Honestly, what I'll say is, and this is the thing. Like this, here's the thing: is Russo knows it's a trap, but they should have known it was a trap beforehand. When they know that, and here's the thing: once they've tracked the phone to that location, the smart thing would have been put a cordon off on it. Yeah, put a cordon off of it and not let the Punisher out. Send in a little drone that says, send in a drone with some chlorine gas or something. Well, you probably can't put chlorine gas, or just tear gas, and just smoke the guy out. Because you know where he is. And like he says, when the guy says, well, he's not here, just the phone. He says, oh, it's a trap. He's there. Of course he's there. You've walked into a box canyon. There is no other way this is going to end. And it doesn't end. And basically, Frank tells Russo, how disappointed he is in him. That, the Frank Russo he knows would have been here. And then Russo says something about a dog, and I forget what the line was. But, yeah, basically, Russo's no dummy. He doesn't want to really have that mano-a-mano confrontation because he's not all about, climbing Testosterone Mountain. Really.
Right, and he's not willing to die right now.
Mm-hmm.
And fighting an enemy that is willing to die to get to you, that's not something you want to engage in if you're not willing to die too.
Exactly. But we do get a nice reunion between Micro and
his daughter and Leo,
which is sweet and also a little bit creepy because there's this great thing where they're waiting in the car after all of this. They're waiting for Frank at the pier, and Leo says, "Oh, I want to listen to that song," and she says, "My friends and I made up a little dance to it. It's stupid." And Micro says, "No, you dance beautifully." And she's like, "Oh, that's it." But then she's like, "How would you know that?" And
Yeah.
you realize that Leo's like, "Oh, I don't want to actually tell my child that, yes, I've had video surveillance on you for the last year.
Yeah.
And you and your mother and brother have not taken a poop without me knowing about it." But at the same time, he wants to put the best spin on it. Which is,
Yeah, I don't think that's a part that needs to be told to the kids. He needs to tell Sarah, but I don't think they should,
Well,
the kids don't need to know that.
At the end of the day, I think this is the kind of stuff that you're going to just say, you know what, I get it in the long run. Honestly, after what these kids have gone through, they're going to be just like, okay, you know what, I get it. We're moving on.
Yeah. No, because it's like he could say all he wants. It was for your protection. It was for your protection. But until that real situation happens to them, they don't understand what he was trying to protect them from.
Yeah.
So his decision should make complete sense after the situation.
Yeah, and now that they're in the situation, it kind of does make sense,
Yeah.
That they were under.
So I mean, he doesn't need to make too many. Yeah, he doesn't have much explaining to do.
Yes, but though you can see the daughter thinking, and like I said, I think the daughter realized exactly what it was, and has that moment of, this is kind of creepy, and then moving on from there. And Frank calls Madani and brings her in, and they're gonna work together because they all know they want to bring down Rollins.
Yeah.
And Rollins, meets with Marion, sells out Billy Russo, and that's about it. That's this episode. It was I really like the Punisher way more than I thought I would.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. What I'll say is definitely after Iron Fist, this is definitely back to what we like at Netflix.
Indeed.
I thought Defenders had its moments, but this is what Netflix movies and TV shows should be. A couple more episodes, we're going to start doing the AKA Jones.
Jessica Jones. Yeah, yes. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't watched a single episode of it yet. I want to watch it clean.
That is fine. I will say this: we do have a new theme song, so we'll
Ooh, right on.
Yeah, because we had our it's Mozz, it's Shaz, and we got a different one. We're going to do this because there's a different song at the center of this season that will.
Okay, right on.
Okay, but so get to watch that in a couple weeks, folks. Anyway, so any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I think we covered everything. Do you think? No, obviously Billy ends up in their lair at the end, and all the files are in the computer. So do you think? I mean, obviously Micro has files of everything away from their base, right?
Well. Who knows? Well,
it isn't meant to imply that Billy has gotten his hands on all the information against him.
Well, what it is, what you see here is you see the countdown clock, and of course you remember the countdown clock.
Right.
And this.
What was it for? So it's to disseminate all the information to all the press, right?
Yeah, it's basically everything they have will go out on a live stream.
Right. So, but if he destroys all the computers here now, it won't kill the plan, right? Because there still seem to be 19 hours left on the clock.
Well, yeah. I mean, he certainly could do that. Although you don't know if it's it's going back to the front towards enemy thing. If you pull the wrong wire, you don't defuse the bomb. You detonate it. So if you unplug the wrong machine first, that can cause the you don't know what is running through the machines. So
right. Okay.
And not for nothing, all this data fits on a thumb drive.
Right.
So it's not like they don't have 10 other copies that could be hidden everywhere. That if you further, it's going to go out at this time. That is your countdown clock. You can destroy the countdown clocks, but that doesn't mean that you've destroyed the information, even regardless, And they know that. They're smart enough to know that. But more to the point, like I said, if you try to disable the machines, you may well send it all out.
Right, that's what leaves it more interesting and dramatic.
But of course, for us as the viewers, we know that when Micro was doing this, that was actually just a failsafe.
Oh, remember there was like a countdown to the thing to blow up too?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, he told him that there was a bomb or something, or
maybe there was.
Yeah. No, I don't. Well, I don't think there actually was a bomb.
Oh, really?
No, I don't believe. If I recall correctly, the episode at the end, Frank says, "There's not a bomb. I know. I've checked this whole place out and all this kind of stuff." But he, says, "Yeah, but all that information goes out there. All the information on you. It tells people where to find us, and everyone's going to know that you are alive, Frank Castle." And that was his threat there. So it's a very similar threat, although at the same time, as we saw, this was part of creating routine, and that's how you escape. And what this could lead to here, well, we'll see that all as it plays out. But obviously, it is meant to put us to remind us of that original scene where Leo escapes from the Punisher. That this is what that scene was for. So we're going to have to see how it all plays out, and we will certainly do so next week. Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that oldfashioned email way the way our Mozz and Paz once did on computers like Micro uses at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things when I can stay awake for them and I remember that they're on TV, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEssser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And now, dear listener, you are absolved. Go in peace and sin no more. But next time, when you sin, and you will sin, return